Good morning, everyone. It is February 28th. This is your Together for LA weekly small business support meeting with information to help our small businesses in their recovery from the two fires of January 2025. We have people joining in right now, and so we will wait just a few moments for people to enter into the webinar, and then we will begin. As always, this webinar is being recorded and will be posted shortly on the Together for LA website at togetherforla.org. So if there's something that you missed or wanted to review, you can visit togetherforla.org, and the recording of this and previous webinars will be posted online. Today, we have a number of special speakers for you and to answer questions for you about the process of recovery, with a special topic today around how do we make sure that we support the mental health of our employees when they're going through a traumatic incident like a wildfire that has destroyed two communities in Los Angeles. And so if you have questions during today's seminar, you can go to the bottom of your Zoom link, and there's a Q&A section that you can click and answer your questions. We'll either type the answers to you or answer them live during the presentation. Because today we have two guest speakers, we'll be holding our questions until both speakers have completed, and then we will go to the question component. So with that, I'd like to introduce our two speakers, and then I'll turn it over to them. First, we have Dr. Erica Holmes. She is a commissioner for the LA County Behavioral Health Commission. She's also a licensed clinical psychologist, and she's a representative from Supervisorial District 2 on that commission. So thank you, Dr. Holmes, for joining us. And also with us is Emily Garlick, who is with the Entertainment Community Foundation, and she is a licensed clinical social worker, also joining us today and giving her time to help make sure that we have the best information for our community in this recovery. So with that, I thank you both for being here. I'd like to first turn it over to Dr. Holmes to make some comments in this topic about how do we deal with the mental health issues surrounding a traumatic event like these fires for small business leaders, and especially those you're working with, your employees or customers or others. So with that, Dr. Holmes.
Thank you so much for having me. In the time that I have, I just want to really stress and emphasize the importance of acknowledging that we have experienced a communal trauma, right? So one of the things that I love to say is that the body will manifest what the mind will not acknowledge or the mouth will not speak. So we can have a tendency when we get into survival mode just to keep pushing through and not acknowledge what has actually happened to us, right? And to those who we care about or connected to. I know in this, with the fires that happened in LA, I don't know anyone who has not been touched by the fires in some way or to some degree, whether it was them personally, someone that they worked with, someone that they cared for. And so there's primary loss, right? So people lost their businesses, or the businesses have been impacted, and then you have secondary losses that are also occur with that, right? So homes have been disrupted, financial loss, impacts to customers, and so you're hearing all of these stories. So we have to acknowledge that we've experienced a trauma, right? So the hallmark of trauma is the experience of actual or threatened death or actual or threatened serious bodily harm, with the emotional hallmarks being extreme fear, extreme horror, and hopelessness. And I think that we all can say that we were feeling that during that time. Well, what happens physiologically when we experience a trauma is that there's a system in our brain that kicks in that initiates a fight, flight, or freeze response. What we have to acknowledge as we're moving through is that that fight, flight, or freeze response can linger, right? It can continue, and we can be in a heightened state of physiological and psychological arousal, which causes us to potentially experience different psychological and physiological symptoms or emotions, and express behaviors, which can impact us as we're moving forward as business owners, as employers. It can impact the way that we are able to think about long-term kind of planning and how we're going to recover. It could also impact the internal resources that we have with the for the employees that we're servicing as well. So it's important for us to acknowledge that we are in the middle of the experience and the aftermath of a trauma, and that experience has very definitive psychological and emotional impacts on the ways that we move. So the first thing that I would say is that we need to acknowledge that we've experienced the trauma, that our employees have experienced the trauma, that our customers have experienced the trauma, and then really take stock of the impact that that is having on us and our employees. I know Emily is going to go into more of some of the things that we can do about that, but it's important for us to take stock of how it is impacting us, because if we don't pay attention to and acknowledge the ways that it's impacting us, it is going to interfere with our ability to kind of move forward in our professional and our personal lives. Once we're able to take stock of how we're being impacted, then that is a time that we should reach out for services, right? To be able to acknowledge that we might need additional supports. Those supports can come in a variety of different forms. There could be professional support. Individuals could find support in friend groups. Individuals can find support in their community organizations or religious affiliations. But it's really important for us to get support as we're moving through. Having these webinars is a great avenue for support, to get information, factual information, and to get that emotional support. Because if you as a business owner are not whole and supported and engaging in self-care, then it's very difficult for you to take care of your employees, and very difficult for you to be able to provide your customers with the service that you desire for them to have. So again, acknowledge that we've all experienced a collective or communal trauma. Recognize how that trauma is impacting you as an individual, and also that trickles down to your employees. So what is the impact? What are you carrying? What are you noticing in yourself? What are some of the psychological symptoms, the behavioral symptoms that you are experiencing? Some of those that you might experience, again, as I mentioned, a heightened central nervous system, and that can manifest in feelings of anxiety, nervousness, difficulty concentrating, difficulty sitting still, problems with memory as well, short-term memory. What are the things that I was supposed to do? Feelings of overwhelm, also feelings of sadness, desiring to isolate or disconnect. Other symptoms, and I'm throwing out symptoms just to see if you can see yourself in those, or to give yourself an idea of what things to look out for. Also, sometimes there's a low frustration tolerance, so you might find yourself getting angry quickly, find yourself not having the same patience that you had before. This is really important when you're working with employees and customers, because you can begin to snap at folks, or you can begin to not want to answer the calls because you might not have the answers that they're seeking for. So looking to assess what the impacts, the personal impacts, and how those personal impacts are impacting you professionally, and then are business wise, and then seek help. Don't isolate, although you might have a strong desire to pull away. Seek help, reach out, create connections, whether they be professional connections, uh, connecting more with family or friends or other supports, or using community supports like community organizations, or uh, any religious affiliations that you might have. So those are the three things that I would offer, and then I'll turn it over to Emily.
Thank you, Dr. Holmes. Those were great. And I was taking notes myself, because those are really great things to think about, and particularly kind of the noticing of what are some of the symptoms or things that might be coming up, especially as employers and having employees noticing behavior changes as someone not coming in regularly? Are they not responding to communication from you? Anything that's a little different is really helpful to kind of look out for among your employees. And I always suggest that employees look out for other employees as well, right? That you're making sure that you're noticing other people and where they are and what they're doing. I wanted to share just a quick framework of something we call listen, share, and support. So for you as an employer, you're there kind of as the go-to, right? But there can also be this dynamic of, well, I, as the employee, I don't want to share with my employer what's really going on with me because I'm afraid I might lose my job. It might get out. There might be stigma if I say that I'm feeling depressed or anxious or I can't come to work today. So creating a culture in which you feel like you can say to your employees, I'm here just to listen. I really, truly am here. I'm giving you the space. We can talk privately, or maybe you hold space with everyone together. I understand it. You may have 1, 2, maybe 10 employees. So is it a space that you can create where people can just come and share, and you as the employer can be there to listen? Once you've really heard people, there's that active listening and really trying to understand what is it that's going on for people. Oftentimes, people just need a place to vent and get things out. They don't know what's coming next. I also say, since it's been almost 2 months, there's a lot of grief, there's a lot of loss. A majority of the world and the county and the city has gone back to their daily lives and are dealing with what they do on a daily basis, and you're kind of left in this place of, I'm still struggling. Who's here for me? Right. So after you've listened and given people space, really being able to kind of share some things that they can do for themselves. And that kind of bleeds into support. So things like mindfulness. There are really great mindfulness seminars and webinars and free resources people can take advantage of throughout the city and the county. Like Dr. Holmes said, like, are you taking care of yourself? Right? Are you doing the things every day to check in and make sure that you're okay? Because if your tank is not full, it's really hard to listen to other people and to hold that space for people as well. Depending on what your kind of work is and your business and your hours, right? Checking in and making sure that, are people able to take more flexible schedules? Can they, can they work from home? Can they take a day off? Can you institute, like everyone gets a mental health day, or, coming up for the next couple of months, really kind of checking in on some of those things. Support also comes in the form of, there are really great mental health resources in the county. A lot of places are doing free individual therapy. They're doing free group therapy. I'm also a grief counselor. We're doing a lot of just groups and webinars for people to understand what is going on for them and to know that this is not short-lived. This is something that's going to continue. It's going to continue to affect your business. It's going to continue to affect you for quite a while. Right. And so to really sit down, it's not a sprint. This is a marathon. And so is your mental health. And that really comes down to yours as the business owner and your employees. So making sure that you're creating a culture where you can balance that and knowing that there are resources for you as well. So that's kind of my biggest framework, right, is listen, share, and support. There are great resources in terms of statements that you can share with your employees. Like, I'm really happy that you brought that to me, understanding there's confidentiality, creating this space, people, we like to talk about safe spaces. I really like to talk about brave spaces where people can come and really share, I'm really not feeling well today. I don't know what it is, right? But I want to be here. I want to be working here. But I'm struggling, right? How can you support me? Who can you connect me with? Really just being aware of what behaviors and things that people are experiencing, and then knowing that there are a lot of resources out there for you as the employer, for yourself, and places where you can connect people as well. So I'm going to just pause there. John, I don't know if there are questions or not. I'm happy to take some.
So what
John,
question? Yes, go ahead, Dr.
I'm
Holmes.
sorry. I just wanted to share a slide right quick as Emily talked about resources that folks can screenshot, but just so that Emily mentioned the resources within the county. So I created this slide just to give folks like a snapshot. So I'll leave that up for a second if people want to screenshot it. But most of these are free resources. Even if people don't want to talk verbally, there's a crisis text line. So if people are feeling down or feeling anxious, if you as a business owner just need someone to talk to and are not ready to take a step to go to provide to access direct mental health services, there's a crisis text line, and then there's also the suicide crisis hotline that you can call for 988. So just wanted to share those.
Yeah, Dr. Holmes, leave this up for a second. If I'm a small business owner, I have employees, maybe I have 3, maybe I have 30, which of these numbers or which of these resources should I maybe promote specifically to my employees? Thinking that just the regular level of trauma in this moment, where can we refer them if they're feeling uncomfortable, anxious, all the descriptions you gave earlier, which referral should we offer them?
So the two that I would suggest is the first one, which is the LA Care and Behavioral Health Crisis Support. I would suggest that one, and then also the crisis text line, that crisis text line, and the suicide crisis line. All three are staffed 24 hours by warm bodies, and they could talk to some right away, and they can also provide in the moment referrals. So or they can just be a listening ear just to kind of talk it out. But if the person needs additional supports ongoing, they can provide in the moment referrals. So again, the first one, LA Care, behavioral health support line, the 988 suicide and crisis line, which you call, or the crisis text line, and you can just text.
And what, most folks probably hadn't ever known they needed this before, right? This is a new moment for them. When they call this number or a number or a professional, what should they, specifically these lines, are they going to have to provide a bunch of information, or is it literally, hi, my name's John, I want to talk to somebody, and that's all you need to give? What's it like?
Yes, they can call anonymously. They don't have to they don't have to use their name. They can make up a pseudonym or an alias if they want, and they can just talk and hang up, and it can be a one-time thing, and no one will know it's them.
Great, that's a great
Great.
resource. Thanks for sharing that. As our small business owners and business folks are on the line, if you have any questions, again, use the Q&A component of the Zoom feature, and we can ask the questions. You can also ask anonymously, even through this as well. And so I appreciate both of you sharing your expertise within your profession. Is Dr. Holmes, you spoke specifically about, we've all gone through trauma. It's a major issue for all of us. Is there an increase in folks seeking assistance? Is this something that we're seeing more people reaching out, that they're finding the moment to find that extra help for mental health and behavioral health resources? Is that something that's happening, or is it just the same level that you're seeing typically?
Right. In my experience of this, and even natural disasters, as Emily said, this is a marathon, not a sprint. And so and Emily also mentioned grief. And so we're grieving losses, as I mentioned early on, because the hallmark of trauma is really that it is unpredictable, right? And quick, unpredictable. Most people for the first 4 to 6 weeks are in shock. And so they really are trying to take stock of and the reality of what's happened, the enormity of what's happened. Of uh, uh, of like distress, right? That there was kind of like an intellectual knowing, like when something happens, there's an intellectual knowing. And so they might come and seek services because they just want to talk through like this happened. But the feeling of what happened, the settling in of I have lost everything or near everything, or like, what happened to my family. My 86-year-old mother-in-law lost her house in the Eaton fire, where she and my father-in-law had been since 1969. And my husband and I, as empty nesters, now have my mother-in-law in our home. One day it was us, skipping through the daisies. And then here you go now. And so I know that, that's the same for others. And, and I have a small business. So, dealing with the personal, trying to balance the personal and professional, and the professional. And so now things are seeking in. So to answer your question specifically, I think that as we go along, using Emily's word, this marathon, I think there's going to be a huge uptick of individuals who are seeking out services because of the enormity, because this is a long lasting recovery period. And for some people, they'll never be able to go back to the pre fire kind of existence. So I think there's going to be an uptick. And then I'll turn it over to Emily to add.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Holmes. And you said something which I wanted to touch on, which I think is so important to just remember, is that the personal bleeds into your professional lives and vice versa, right? Even if this we weren't talking about a disaster, when you come home, especially as a business owner, you've been dealing with your whole day and your employees and sales and whatever it was that was going on for you. It doesn't stop when you walk through the door and you get home. And all the things that happen in your family and your drive to work and all that, it doesn't stop as soon as you walk into your business. And so understanding that because people's personal and professional lives have now heightened, that it's going to take some time for people to come down from that. And I agree, at the first 4 to 6 weeks of this, people were being thrown resources, particularly financial resources, right? Call your insurance, go to the resource centers, get the documents that may have been lost. Make sure you've connected to the Red Cross. What other free grants are out there? The SBA has been amazing, right? Like make sure you get that stuff in so that you're not waiting, right? There's money for you to have. Now people are coming out of that a little bit, and from a grief perspective, we're seeing a lot of kind of heaviness that people are feeling. I suspect it's going to increase quite significantly again as people's, they may have the money now but they can't rebuild, right? For many people who've lost their businesses, do I want to go back? Was I insured? There are a lot of questions, but there are a lot of feelings, right? And sometimes you have to sit with those feelings and have a place to process that. And it's not about what can I do? It's about where accepting, using Dr. Holmes' words from before, accepting where I am right now. So I think there's just going to be a lot of that in the next, I suspect, even 3 to 6 months coming up.
That's really good for all of us to think about what's coming as well. That this idea of shock in the first 4 to 6 weeks, and then now it's coming back to be more of a reality that this is what it's going to be. I see that our colleague from the SBA, Anita, has raised her hand. Did you want to comment or ask a question of our experts here?
I did. I just wanted to actually share a personal story that might resonate with your survivors, and maybe your colleagues could comment on. So it wasn't in a disaster such as this, but I did lose my home to a fire, and I did lose my businesses. As a result of my small businesses. And I'm listening to the things that you're saying, and I have to say they are resonating with me uh, in terms of the perspective that you're bringing in terms of the grieving process and the coming down. I feel fortunate that I'm able to do this amazingly fulfilling work now with the SBA, but it is very true. I am seeing with the perspective of time that I have had since the business and the personal losses that of course nobody here has, plus multiplying the magnitude of what's happening here, the community loss, that it is resonating, ringing so true. And I wish I had some of this guidance and perspective to inform me. So thank you so much for bringing this up.
And Anita, as you're talking, I sort of I thank you for sharing that, first of all. And I think it reminds me of some conversations that we've had earlier around the ability for people to share what they're going through and just tell their story. Can you explain how that might be helpful if just asking the question, like what happened, is that an appropriate way to help people, or does that sometimes lead to re-traumatization?
Well, I think it ultimately at some time in some place it does need to come out, and I'm so grateful that there is even these resources to text, as Dr. Holmes and Emily are saying. That's the way some people need to communicate. And as I said, I'm sitting here and I'm listening, and of course I'm remembering my own experience, and feeling maybe a little bit of the remnants of grief, but also seeing, wow, maybe what I couldn't feel in that moment, that there would be a future and a fulfilling transition, because as Emily was saying, you're busy, trying to get your insurance, rebuilding, how am I going to take care of my employees, my clients, things of that nature. So although it can be re-traumatizing, it can, when you're ready and it's individual and personal, it is empowering as you go along. So does that help anybody?
Yes, and yes, and thank you so much for sharing, and even sharing, from your perspective, the how helpful it is to talk about. And I just wanted to follow up and say, John, I like to ask, rather than asking what happened, just simply asking, would you like to talk about it? Right. So it gives the person the option to say, no, not now, uh, maybe later, and it also shows that you are interested in being a resource and that you're a safe place. So, rather than saying what happened, which puts them in a place to feel like they have to talk about it, just asking, do you want to talk about it? And if they say no, just say, well, I'm always here.
Got it. That's great advice. Thank you. I'm not see oh, I do see some questions. Uh, okay, these are more technical. And so let me move on, and I want to just acknowledge and thank both Dr. Holmes and Emily both for sharing your insights and the resources and just some tips to help us. I mean, this is I think, to Emily's point, right, that marathon that we're in, right? And we're just at the beginning of it. And so for all of those that are listening, please feel free to refer back to this recording. The resources that Dr. Holmes shared are a great resource for you. You can also go to the togetherforla.org website, and there's if you need specific questions, we can connect you. There's a intake form there. We can connect you to folks in these various organizations who might be able to be a resource. And so I really appreciate both of you taking your time out this morning to be with us. And I just we have about 15 minutes left in the webinar. I just want to transition to some more technical questions that help us process and hopefully move us forward as a community. So with us today, you've met Anita already from the SBA, and her colleague Lay is here as well. We also had a representative from the city of LA was here. I'm not sure if I don't see her on the screen any longer, but if there's questions here. So I have some questions that have come in around unemployment, as well as phases of the disaster, and we'll try to get to these for this. So first, I guess, I think to SBA, to Anita, the question that just came in earlier, is there a business funding that does not put already compromised home up for collateral? I'm worried about amplifying the loss beyond how big it already is. Anita, can you speak to collateral, especially for the SBA loans?
Could you read the question for me again, John? Just
Sure. I'll read it verbatim. Is there business funding that does not put our already compromised home up for collateral? I'm worried about amplifying the loss beyond how big it already is.
Sure. So if this is a business loan that the individual is applying for, then you know, if so, their home is not required to collateralize a business loan, period. So if I could just say that. Now, if their home is like an LLC, so on and so forth, uh, the SBA business loans will look to collateralize assets of the business. So that should not put an incursion on their personal assets, their home. So that generally, and also, of course, the SBA would love to have collateral beyond $50,000. The first $50,000 requires no collateral, but they will look to collateralize, like file a UCC lien, and so that would be on like equipment the business owns, but that's probably not much these days. And so the point is, you will never be denied a loan with the SBA for lack of collateral. So as much as they would love collateral, really, if your business, you shouldn't offer your home. I mean, that's the whole point of establishing an LLC or an S corp or something, is to shield your personal assets. So stick with that, folks. Stick with that. Right? I mean, don't offer it, even if it's asked for.
Great. It says that the person said the business application asks for all the personal home information. So thank you for clarifying that. So
Yes,
thank
I
you
mean,
for that question.
provide it, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you're offering it up as collateral. I mean, they're just assessing your situation. So
Perfect. I see there's two other questions. I don't see anybody joining us today from EDD, and correct me if I'm wrong, team. There's a question about unemployment payout for self-employment. And so I don't know if Yvonne, if you've got any insight there around the EDD question, or the question around it looks like phase one and opt-in for commercial. Yvonne, do you see those two questions? I don't know if you have insight on either of those you can answer.
So, good morning. I'm Giovanna, and it's very nice to be here. I'm actually filling in for Rosa Peñalosa. We are with the City of LA Economic and Workforce Development Department, so we actually don't have any jurisdiction in regards to EDD. And I'm sorry, I don't think I could answer these questions. So, we basically are overseeing any technical assistance provided to businesses, more specifically the small business relief fund application. So we are managing and coordinating technical providers to help those that want to apply. And through our work source centers, they're helping workers that have been impacted with the application. And so I can answer questions in regards to those programs, but not some of the questions that are there.
Great. So our question around uninsurance rate, if you Emily, I'm not sure if it is.
Yeah, I saw that question, and I can actually answer that. We just did the Entertainment Community Fund. We just did a webinar with EDD specifically around disaster unemployment. So I think the question said about being self-employed. Oftentimes, that's not a category that would sometimes qualify for unemployment or wouldn't get as much. Right now, because this is a disaster, if you've been affected in any way, go to the EDD website. At the top of their website, in fact, I can put the website in the chat if that's helpful. There is a link to the disaster unemployment. If you are eligible for still able to create a claim for your regular unemployment, you would do that first. And then once that runs out, you can continue into a disaster unemployment claim. You want to make, what they emphasized was, you want to make sure that when you're filling out that claim that you are saying this is due to the fires. What it does is it segments it off from regular unemployment to disaster, and they will be in touch with you about what specifically that means. They had also mentioned, again, I'm not EDD, but I'm just sharing what they had mentioned, is that even if you get something back that says you're not eligible, to call them. And on their website, there is a specific number for disaster unemployment, and they are trying to speak to everyone and really helping them individually. So I would really encourage you to reach out, and I'm happy to put that website in the chat.
Thanks, Emily, for relaying that information. That's great. And so I'm seeing another question come in is there any grants for people who held a property in an LLC and rented it out, a house only? The house was destroyed, but since it wasn't my primary residence, I don't live in LA County. I have a hard time finding any help. The home I rented was my primary source of income, and they managed it themselves. So I'm not sure. First, Ivana, is that eligible for the relief program that you are running for grants?
I would encourage that person to apply. I think that as long as you're able to submit all the required documents and justify or document that you did suffer some type of economic impact as a result of the wildfires, then your application will be reviewed. And then, the reviewer will make a determination as to whether you're eligible or not, depending on the justification and the information you submit.
Great. And I think that Helen, that's also similar to your question as well around it was a rental that was lost in the fires. And it is there's a lot of different categories of people that are businesses, and certain programs are eligible for certain businesses. And we do encourage you, especially for the LA County Small Business Relief Fund, to apply to get yourself in the system. And that way that you can continue to be aware of what's happening. And they'll continue to use that as a way to understand some of the other needs that are out there as well. So thank you both for those questions as well. There's an SBA question. What would be the best way to request SBA to extend the EIDL loans hardship accommodation payment at 10% for those zip codes affected by the fire?
Okay. I'm actually going to call on my colleague, Lee, and see if she has any information on this.
I'll put the number into the chat, but I would mention, so I already have this information down to send it to my manager, but I would contact the COVID Idle Servicing Center. I'm going to put the number in the answer to this question. But then also you will want to maybe contact your congressional representative. So
Awesome.
a couple of different things. And then also, just because I always push this everywhere I go, as a small business owner, you don't have to go through any of this alone. You are going to want to get your free business advisor, Small Business Development Center, Women's Business Center, Schooler, Veterans Business Outreach Center. They're all here to help support you. And especially if you look at something like the Small Business Development Center, it's a free business advisor, right? But if SBA took some of your tax dollars to help pay for these services, is it free, or do you kind of already pay for a service that you're choosing not to take advantage of? So I'd still want to know why you're not taking advantage of the service that is available to you. I'm gonna go ahead and type that.
Perfect. Thank you. As the owner of an S Corp and also an employee of the business, is the intention that we apply for business resources, employee resources for ourselves, or can we apply for both? So, Ivana, why don't you talk about the relief fund first, and then I can speak to some other things. Go for it.
Sure. So you can apply for both. You are probably wouldn't be selected to receive both, but you can apply for both.
Got it. And then also, the SBA provides, well, Anita, you guys don't really give direct to individuals or workers. Your work is around the businesses, correct?
So aside from the fact that we are assisting homeowners and renters, with their own, personal losses, if they lost their home or personal property. Uh, but I think in the context that you're, bringing it up, if they are out of work, yeah, I would just say that I believe that if they're independent contractors, which I know a lot of, at least in the entertainment industry, that tends to be the case, uh, they should perhaps apply, but probably not in terms of grants, right, Lee? Probably not.
But you
But
have to look at the double funding aspect of it.
yes,
So
yes,
some programs, they're going to say, well, did you get funding over here? Just
right.
like we just discussed for the City of LA program or LA County program, they're going to look at, did you have funding over here? They don't want to duplicate the funding efforts. This is in order to make sure the limited funding amounts go to the maximum amount of people.
I have an update. Actually, I looked at the FAQs and I have a response. So yes, of course you can apply to both, but if you are selected for both fund programs, you will be allowed to receive funds from the program that awards you the largest grant amount. So you won't be able to receive both, but you will be able to receive the largest grant amount.
Right. And generally SBA gives loans, not grants. So you're better off going with your grant options, which we strongly encourage everybody to get.
Yeah, and I have added the link to the application in the chat, as well as a link to the documents that are required. The application for both small business and workers fund does close this Sunday at 5 p.m. So if you are interested, I would encourage you to look at the application and the required documents today. And there is, I think I can add the link here. There are different technical service providers that can assist you with completing the application or if you have specific questions. So I'll add their information here. Should you want to reach out to them, today would be the best day to do so.
Great. Thanks so much for that update. There's a question about being promoted through government contracts. I don't believe that they've launched a lot of promotions of local businesses yet, but I would definitely encourage you to reach out to your local Chamber of Commerce, wherever you're located, or even in the areas impacted. Join those chambers, and I know they are producing. I've seen lists that they're producing as a way to provide resource lists. Currently, I'm not aware of any government agency in particular that is just promoting businesses that are not under contract with the government agency. So that's that question that just came in.
I'd like to add one thing to that. So if you're not on Ramp LA, I would recommend that you sign up because any contracting opportunities would be advertised there. And so just make sure that you're selecting the correct NICS codes so that if anything is posted, you are notified via email.
We're coming up on time, and I see there's a couple questions we're going to try to follow up on. Oh, Lee, go ahead.
I just wanted to mention very quickly that whenever you're looking at contracting, you have to look at city, county, state, and federal. So you want to be certified with the city, the county, the state, and federal to identify what contracting opportunities might be available to you. And I'm going to put a link into the chat for what is called an Apex Accelerator. Apex Accelerator helps you as a business owner get certified. Just like we we're talking about, like you don't need to have the extra stress of, oh, I have to jump, I don't know what to do. You go to the Apex Accelerator. This is going to be free business advice specifically in the area of government contracting.
Great. Thank you for sharing that. With that, we'll stay on for a bit more, but I want to just acknowledge and thank our guest speakers today, especially Dr. Holmes and Emily Garlick as well, sharing those special insights. As a reminder to all our attendees, there will be a recording of this session posted on togetherforla.com, as is our past week's webinars as well. And so we'll make sure that we do that. there is one last question. So we'll thank you all, but there's one last question in the chat, and I'm not sure if SBA wants to help either write an answer or verbalize, but it looks like they're going to type you an answer there, Luciano. So about collateral. So with that, we wish you a good day and a good weekend, and we'll be back next week with another session. Please go to togetherforla.org for more information, as well as a form where you can sign up for resources from our partners at the LA Economic Development Corporation, who hosts this webinar every week. Please be safe, and we'll see you all next week.